My name's Aaron Edwards, Santos Springs. Welcome to this week's edition of the Friday Field Report South America, March 20th, 2026. And there's a lot of major headlines coming out of Brazil, and they're mainly logistical. So we're going to talk about some of the logistical challenges in Brazil. But first, let me just get you caught up with what's going on in the field. Let's start the big thing. Let's talk about weather. And they've had just good rainfall both the last 7 days as well as forecasted for next 7 days. It's on the wet side, but it's not too bad. It's almost Goldilocks rainfall. And what I mean by that is they've been able to make field work progress, but they're still getting the rains that they need to develop their safrinha corn crop. So if you want to, is it bullish or bearish? It's pretty much bearish weather so far. As far as field progress, the safrinha corn window has pretty much closed north to south. In rounded numbers, about 10 to 15% of the crop will be planted outside of the optimal window. But this is right on par with the historic average. They're actually slightly ahead of the historic planting season. Last year, they were a little bit ahead of a historic average. So they're behind last year, ahead of the 5-year average. The delayed planting story, basically that's done. Even if there's delays moving forward, it's such a small percentage where, again, about 10 or 15% of the corn crop will be planted outside of the optimal window, but that's kind of normal. It's a double crop. So if you can get most of it planted on time, you're good to go. And the first hurdle developmentally is kind of getting the corn out of the ground. And it's looking like that's going to be fine with as long as the forecasted rains come. So the next major hurdle that we would say, so we have the planting and the just emerging challenge. It's looking like that's going to be okay on the double crop corn, the safrinha corn. The next major hurdle, and this usually is the biggest hurdle, will be pollination, but we're not quite there yet. So there is a potential for weather scare on safrinha corn until really through pollination. There's that risk, but we've got a little bit of ways to go. And for this week or for now, the story is bearish on the corn. We did get updated CONAB numbers for both corn and soybeans. So from a work standpoint, soybeans are about 60% harvested, right on par with historic averages. Not much of a story there. As far as their expected production, if we look at the corn, the USDA is expecting a corn crop that is smaller than CONAB is expecting for Brazil. The CONAB number is just a hair over 138, and the USDA is at 131 million metric tons. So the adjustment was slightly bullish with the CONAB number, but if you round it, it's just a rounding thing from 1 month to the next. Same thing on soybeans, slightly bullish adjustment. If you round it, it kind of goes away. The big thing on the soybeans is that the CONAB expectation for the size of the soybean crop is actually 2 million metric tons smaller than the USDA. So I kind of went over that fast. Let's start again. So on soybeans, the USDA number is here, Brazil's number is here, and on corn, the USDA's number is here, Brazil's number is here. So Brazil expects a larger crop out of South America or out of Brazil than the USDA does when it comes to corn. There's still a weather story there. Field work is on par. Planting and harvest, again, they're on par. They're caught up. There's adequate rainfall expected. Not much of a fieldwork story. Now, went through that pretty quickly because there absolutely are some big stories, but they are mainly on the logistical side of it. And there's three major logistical headlines, three major logistical stories to watch in Brazil that could have impacts. Number one, we've actually touched on two of these, but it's kind of they're playing out. So number one is if you saw the headline, there was a inspection. There was a change. The Brazilian government changed their policy on inspecting ships, allegedly because of pressure from the Chinese government, and there's sanitation issues that were either making it impossible to export soybeans, or they were just making the process a lot longer. If you stop a ship at port for a long time, that gets really costly. So that actually dried up some inland deals with some of the buyers. A lot of those headlines were circulating, so you probably saw stories about that. There is a meeting scheduled between representatives of the Brazilian government, representatives of the Chinese government, hopefully to work out a deal there so that they can come to some degree of agreement on the inspections and hopefully go back to streamlining that process, and that would help Brazilian exports of soybeans. Basically, just go back to how it was. We've been doing, just don't change it. We've been doing it a certain way for this long. Let's just keep doing it how we've been doing it. It's meeting the international standard, but we'll see what comes of that meeting. The expectation is that there will be some type of a streamlined process, but the hiccups are still in the system. And until that meeting happens, and I believe it's scheduled for next week, until that happens, there's logistically a challenge there at the port, at least with some shipments exported from Brazil to China. Second story, which we've also touched on, with the conflict in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, there have been an absolutely spike in fuel prices, which have hit diesel prices in Brazil right at its soybean harvest, its double crop corn planting, cotton planting also, and it's, if you know anything about Brazilian logistics, a lot of the grain is moved on trucks. So literally trucks, which use diesel fuel, planters, tractors using diesel fuel, combines using diesel fuel. Right when diesel is the most needed for ag, the price just absolutely skyrocketed. That's the second thing, and that is absolutely hitting farmer margins. And the third story, the third story is there's rumors of a trucker strike. So there's some lobbying and some horse trading going on to see if they can avoid the trucker strike. But I would not be surprised if sometime it's looking like there's going to be a headline of a trucker strike as early as today, but also possibly into next week. It's imminent. Whether they'll be able to avoid the strike or not is interesting, but we all know trucker strikes can absolutely impact markets. So there's three major logistical stories. Brazil-China deal at the port, the high cost of fuel directly hitting farmer margins, which may not have significant impact on the soybean market. It might just come out of basis, but it absolutely hurts margins. And then the third story is a trucker strike. And the trucker strike could impact, a lot of times markets react to trucker strikes. So that could absolutely be an interesting headline. That's something to watch. Again, that headline could break any time because they're actively horse trading and trying to figure out what's going on. So it could not become a strike, or it could be a strike. We're right there on the cusp, but I would definitely keep that in mind. And a lot of moving parts. It's a very, very challenging harvest season. Also, the exchange rate isn't great. So most farmers down there are looking at numbers that are not profitable, and they are looking at a cash crunch, which they need to move grain in the next 4 to 6 weeks. High fuel costs, difficult logistics, imminence of a trucker strike, exchange rate that is not friendly. It is a very, very hard time from a financial and logistical standpoint for farmers in Brazil. Let's see how it all plays out, right? There's always a moving target. If I were to guess, unless there's a change in weather, I'd guess front and center is going to be the logistical challenges, probably for the next week or two. And then we have to keep an eye on weather as we come closer to pollination with the double crop corn. There could still very much be a bullish story there. We're just not quite there yet. Hope you have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. Don't hesitate to reach out.